And we're moving into our second conversation for today as we initiate the information around the celebration of International Forest Day. And this morning we have a panel of 4 joining us. We have Yanira Pop, who is the forest officer with the Forest Department. Florencia Guerra, who's also a forest officer with the Forest Department. We have Jasmin Faber, who's a project officer at Red Plus Belize. And we have Ingrid Fernandez, communications officer for Red Plus Belize. Good morning and welcome.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, good morning.
So we are getting ready to commemorate International Day of Forests 2021. And we're getting an early start, right, ladies?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so the idea behind celebrating this day and the theme for this particular year is forest restoration, a path to recovery and well-being. When we talk about restoration, it clearly means that it means putting into context the damage that has been done. Let's start with the Forest Department to look at where we are in the health of our own forests in Belize.
So as it pertains to the forest cover that the country of Belize has currently, as of 2018, our forest cover is at 61.75%. And in terms of the amount of forests that are degraded, the percentage as of 2018 is also 7.33%. So that means in total about 68% of our forest is either, has some level of deforestation or degradation at some point.
In terms of the forest cover, if I'm looking at where we are in terms of restoration, what are we looking at in terms of forest cover, since we've spoken on the percentage that has been degraded?
Yes, so when it comes to degradation, we at the Forest Department, we have several initiatives that we are sort of striving to sort of either reverse the forest cover to what it once was, or to stop it at any point. I mean, that would be the best solution. But initiatives that we have is we do reforestation with our partners. We have various stakeholders that aid with that. We have initiatives in terms of agroforestry systems. We also have the implementation of best practices. This would be sustainable forest management. We have, with this, we have licenses, and instead of unsustainably harvesting the timber and wood products, there is some level of monitoring and assessments that we conduct to ensure that the harvesting of these products is sustainable and it doesn't lead to further degradation of our forests that we have.
Nice. Then let's get the ladies from Red Plus into the conversation and talk about your role in working along with the Forest Department.
Hi, Marlene. Well, thank you so much for having us. We're very excited to be here to share about what the Red Plus project is about. And I just want to start by telling you a little bit about the Red Plus project. The project came about as a response to the environmental emergency that the world is facing due to the increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So the United Nations gathered together and came up with this project, the Red Plus project, reduction of carbon emissions from deforestation and forest degradation through conservation, sustainable management of forests, and increase of carbon stocks in Belize. And what the project effectively does is that it financially rewards countries that are able and willing to maintain and sustain their forests. It puts a financial value system in place for these countries to be able to benefit from investors so that they can go ahead and continue doing what they've been doing for a long time, which is sustain and maintain our forests alive. So that's a little bit about the Red Plus project right there, and we can continue with some of the things that we've been doing this year. But if you have any questions, please go on.
No, I wanted to ask that because I think, it's interesting. When you fly into Belize, it's perhaps the one thing that just stands out to you. It's all the green that we're surrounded by. And while some see it as a sign of underdevelopment, we're now entering an era where all this greenery now carries its own value. Talk to us about how this has been a global focus and how we're trying to capitalize on that as well.
Yeah, like I was saying just now, the United Nations recognizes that the increase of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere is at an urgent level globally. So they decided to come together and form a response to lower the emissions of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And this was a very innovative way in which everybody in the world contributes to lowering carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So effectively, these countries who are the ones who are contributing most to emissions invest in countries like ours to keep our forests alive, and that balances the amount of carbon that is emitted into the air every year.
What are the key messages being transmitted to persons who are interested in finding out what relevance or what importance this has on forestry?
What is your question? Sorry.
I'm asking you what are the key messages being transmitted for anyone who is interested in finding out how this is important to the idea of forestry.
Our forests is one of our biggest and most precious natural resources that we have in Belize. In our development plan, we already had plans to sustain and to continue maintaining our forests. So it's very relevant, it's very important to all of us to contribute and to keep informing each other about the importance of maintaining our forests alive. And then that also gives an incentive to our government to continue doing so as well. But I think Forest Department could help you guys with more information in that area.
Yeah.
Just to add a little bit more to what my colleague had said, Ingrid, is that some of the key messages that we need to portray is the importance that forest has in sustaining livelihood. The goods and services that forests provide as food, clean air, clean water, the importance that we have in restoring our forests, it will improve our environment. The amount of jobs that can be produced at a different scale, the idea that every single little tree counts, and engaging and empowering our people to sustainably use our forests. I think these are all key messages that we need to portray as to the importance of forests. And one of the important things is, Annie, that we need to portray that we need to emphasize is that this decade, or starting this year, the United Nations General Assembly declared a forest initiative, a global initiative, that this is the decade for forest ecosystem restoration. So all of this shows the importance that the forest sector has, that the forestry has, that restoration has for our livelihoods, for us, for humans, for now and for the future. So all of this concept is being portrayed through the theme that we have, which is forest restoration, a path to recovery and well-being. And it's a path because it is a process that will be a lengthy process. It includes change in culture, change in education, in mindset, different initiatives, capacity building. So all of this encompasses all the key messages that we have, and the importance of maintaining our forest cover and the importance of restoring our forest cover.
Yeah. And that was one of the questions I had. We spoke of the percentage of degradation to the forest, and that you are working to be able to recover, which I guess it means to replant. But explain to me what has led to the degradation, and also a tree doesn't grow overnight. So how long does it take for us to reach the point of recovery?
Okay, degradation basically is when we have a loss, not only in forest cover, but we look at a decrease in soil productivity. In the agriculture sector, we might say that the soil is unproductive. It is not producing the same quality of vegetables as before. We look at the loss of biodiversity. They say there are less deers around running. We have that loss in connectivity. All of this is degradation, and this is caused by us humans. So this is important to consider. Now we need to try to do the reverse, which is forest, which is restoration. And we're looking at landscape restoration, which actually is increasing what I just mentioned, the soil productivity, through different implementation of climate smart practices, capacity building, improving the systems we have, replanting in our watersheds. All of these are key things that we do as restoration activities. So unfortunately, we humans have caused it to be where it is. We have realized that we cannot continue the way we are, because then at the end, the forest will continue degrading. So we're now taking initiatives for restoration, and two very important actions that the Forest Department is presently doing, Marlene, is that we have, with the support of IUCN, we conducted a restoration opportunity assessment methodology. It is known as the ROAM. And in here, we included stakeholders from all levels, from the indigenous sector, from the private sector, from the public sector, from the ministry sector. And we formed a task force, a round table, and we identified the different areas in our country that are degraded. So by identifying these areas now, we already know what are the opportunities that we have to restore, what are some of the activities that we might need to implement. And this methodology now has led us to a country initiative, whereby we are presently having a consultancy to develop a strategy called the National Landscape Restoration Actions for Belize. And like I said, this is a guideline as to how we as a country will be implementing restoration practices, at what level, at what areas. We also need to look at the financial involvement or impact that this will have. So these are all actions that we as a Forest Department are leading. But as I said, these are country actions that we have, since we have a multi-sector task force working in these initiatives at the moment.
What about buy-in from other organizations? Let's get Jasmin into the conversation and talk about some of the projects that you have ongoing.
So for Under Red Plus, one of the main things coming in starting this project was understanding exactly where Belize is. What is it that activities that we have that contribute to emissions. And so under the project, we've had a series of activities happening. For example, one of the things that we've had to do is do the first emissions level. We had to have our technicians go in along with the forest department and do exactly as Yanira said, go and find out exactly what is happening on the ground, whether it's agriculture, whether it's tourism, or what kind of reforestation, logging in terms of encroachments from other entities. And so we have had to implement these activities. And it's not just, okay, we go and we just analyze it and say, okay, it's probably this amount or this one. It's very technical. There are specific calculations, there are trainings that have to be done in order for us to get this information. Along with that, we have had to go into these communities and consult with them. Because it's one thing to just say, okay, we want to protect the forest and get carbon credits, but how is it going to impact these communities? We can't just go out and say we're going to protect everything, because then you're going to infringe on persons' rights to utilize these forests, utilize the resources. So one of the things that we've had to do is do a strategic environmental and social assessment, which basically is us going into the communities, find out what the impact is, find out what the benefits are, and then also try and predict what other issues might come about and how to address those when they do come about. And under this, we had a grievance and redress mechanism where persons can go on to our website and complain if there are issues, if something came up in a consultancy or some issue that they want to bring forward. We had to create a mechanism where persons can go in and do exactly this without feeling that they are being penalized or victimized. And so this is one of the other mechanisms that we were able to implement under this project. In addition, we have been doing the the whole general thing that we're trying to do is do the red strategy. The red strategy will dictate exactly how we go into phase 2. And so all these components are needed in order for us to develop this red strategy.
Let me get in a question there, because I think when we talk about our natural resources, and that's a great example there, people think that it's also, if you're restoring forests, you're losing opportunities for things like agriculture or logging. Is that the case? How do you balance restoring our forests as well as maintaining some of the industries that have already been established? Who wants to take that one?
Well, I can just say that, everything that we have been doing, it's not like, oh, okay, Red Plus came about and Belize just jumped on board. It was not that. Belize had plans already in place that it was working on. For example, the Horizon 2010 to 2030, the National Energy Policy, etc., etc. We had so many plans already that we were going to implement. And basically, when the Paris Agreement came about, which we signed on to, we had to come up with national determined contributions to go for that Paris Agreement. And basically, all these plans that we had just fed into that. So the government is not just going to go and shut down everything and say, let's protect. It is working with these plans, these different organizations, these different ministries to implement their plan while contributing to these factors. So yes, it's a hard thing to balance at times, but I believe Belize also understands that we do need to have that balance in order for us to want to grow economically, but also to do the best approaches when it comes to proper forest management. And that is why the whole Red Plus and the forestry is so key, the collaboration, because one, Red Plus can't function without forestry. And us being able to bring these new technologies and these new approaches, we are able to bring up the forest department to the new technology area where they do forest management. So it's no longer just going and randomly counting trees or the other aspects in which it used to be done. It's more GIS, it's mapping remote, it's putting all these PSPs that they do in a more scientific way. Sorry, not scientific way. That's